good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Six Rings Kane Show on a new night, Monday night now, baby. We're really excited, actually, to have Eric McLean on the show here, college football analyst, co-host of The Huddle. Coach, yes! All right!
First touchdown of the year.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah. You know the name already. It's Mercy. Ha ha. It's a six-ring Kane show. Can't forget the name though. Got Jazz, Blue, Vish, and DJ break the game code. Ain't no changing them, ain't no breaking them. Real put alive from the Hard Rock Stadium. Ball 14 for the orange and green. We see the six-ring champs. It's more than a dream. This is life on the field. Beyond 100 yards of hurricane that's never still put a damage to your squad.
What's wrong with us? Seriously.
What's wrong with us? We're Miami Hurricanes fans.
Welcome to the Six Rings Kane Show, a show dedicated to Miami Hurricane sports, featuring the legendary Larry Bluestein, Jazz Santana, Vish, and Danny Gillette. Let's go Canes.
Welcome. Only half an hour late, but it's on me, bro. I'll take it in the chin because everybody wants to remind me how late I am to the show. And I really don't care. So, yeah. Vish, Max, what's going on, fellas?
What's up?
Looks like the Shakes finally caught up to Vish, apparently. So, you know.
It's been a rough 48 hours, but not as rough as it's been for Gino, apparently.
Vish playing a hurt here today, so we appreciate it, man. And we've got Max all the way from the beautiful sunny state of California.
Hasn't been very sunny recently, although it is today.
Not here either. So it's been gloomy and dark, and Vish is dealing with this.
There's a perpetual haze.
Unbelievable, man! It's crazy. It's crazy around everywhere in all parts of the country. But obviously we're here as we just got breaking news a few hours ago, about 4 or 5 hours ago, that Gino DiMare, the head baseball coach for the University of Miami baseball team, has officially stepped down, resigned, whatever you want to call it. There's obviously going to be a lot of speculation on whether, he was, it wasn't really a step down, right? So we'll kind of get into that a little bit now, and we will also discuss maybe some possibilities, some names out there. Obviously, some of the obvious names, and then we'll kind of go outside the box a little bit. So we'll definitely talk about that and what this does potentially for not only the recruiting classes, but the guys that are still in the program now. So we'll kind of get into a little bit of everything. This is exciting. I know we can go 2 or 3 hours on this. We can go 4 hours on this stuff, probably talking about baseball. But let's first start off with your reactions. Max, you're the guest, so we'll throw it to you first, man. Your reaction initially when you found out that Gino was stepping down as Kane's head coach.
Yeah, shout out my guy Jim. I'm gonna keep his last name anonymous. He gave me a phone call earlier in the day, letting me know that Gino had stepped down, and I was like, "No, you're pulling my chain," and he was like, "No, I'm dead serious. Like he literally just stepped down." And at first I couldn't kind of believe it, and then as I started to think about it more and more, it started to make a lot more sense to me. So I kind of get it, but it was still kind of shocking at the same time. But I'm excited. I'm very excited because now we get to go through another coaching search. Hope it's not as long as our football coaching searches are for our coordinators and stuff like that. But it's gonna be a fun time, and I'm looking forward to researching and learning as much about the new coach as I can.
Vish, you've kind of been an advocate for everybody that's kind of been calling for Gino's head for the last few years. We keep going back to and with good reason, right? You always bring up good points. I mean, we were a national seed last year. We were right outside a national seed this year at number 9. We're winning 40 plus games a year. The recruiting classes are not bad. I mean, we're number 8. Actually, someone corrected me on Twitter recently. The 2024 class is number 8 right now. 2023 class, I'm not too sure. Like I said, I got mixed up with 23 and 24, but still top 10 classes all around, right? Gino and the staff always gets the best of the best. And I know a lot of people are also saying, well, he needs to recruit better. And it's not much better that you can do in recruiting top 10 classes and having 4 or 5 guys get drafted in the top 5 rounds half the time, right? I mean, it's tough to do better than that. However, there's a science to this, right? You see some of these teams like the Vanderbilts and Floridas and LSUs and so on and so forth that still recruit top 10 classes and seem to keep some of their big name guys in school. And then you've got, and this is where you see the discrepancy a lot of the times in pitching staffs and things like that, right? You've been, as I mentioned, I kind of went on a tangent there, but you've been an advocate for keeping Gino on staff, and because he's doing a great job, and I think he did a hell of a job this year with what was given to him as far as pitching staff and so on. What was your initial thought process when you saw that Gino was stepping down? Do you think this was more of a push out, or how did you feel about the whole situation?
Yeah, well, first of all, just in terms of Gino's tenure here, I think you need to recognize that this team missed the NCAA tournament the last 2 years before he took over. Immediately, he fixed that, and they've gotten better pretty much every year since then. Obviously, we have the what if season of 2000 where it was loaded and playing like some of the best baseball in the country. We're definitely going to be probably a top 2 or 3 national seed, and obviously the season just gets canceled. So maybe that would have been his crowning jewel that then the follow-ons wouldn't have happened. But really 3 years in a row should have gotten out of regionals and didn't. And 2 years ago it wasn't at home, it was in Gainesville, but UF lost twice without playing us. So you just had to beat the non-UF teams there and didn't lost to USF and South Alabama, and that's just not acceptable. One of the reasons I was more defending him, though, is, I mean, it's so hard to get from 9th to 4th or 9th to 5th or to do that kind of incremental improvement. And I still can't pinpoint exactly what he's doing wrong to cause these postseason failures. And to me, that was why I was like, I don't see how you can fire him when, this is a top 10 program year in, year out now. Like, how do you get from 10 to 1? What coach is going to make that happen? You're much more likely to do what Florida State did. Now, in terms of my initial reaction, was just shocked. I did not expect to see that come across today. I was planning on staying in bed and throwing up into a trash can like I had been. Instead, I'm sitting here with you guys now, so that wasn't great timing, Gino. After that kind of wore off, you start thinking, okay, was this a resignation, or was this kind of a force out? My guess, without any knowledge, is it was probably somewhere in the middle. They probably came to him with some demands about, this is setting expectations for next year. Maybe talking to him about some changes on his staff. And, Gino's been with the program 24 years. He's won championships here as a player, as a coach. And I could totally see him looking at that and saying, you know what? Paul DiMare passed away this year. Like, I don't need to do this anymore. And I think that's kind of where it landed. So it's probably a little bit in the middle of that, like, not straight up resign or we're going to fire you, but probably these are the things you need to do to be the coach here. And I don't think he was, and someone who has been with Miami that long, who's accomplished as much as he has, just probably not going to take kindly to that kind of direction.
Right. Well, and not only that, I mean, I think people need to realize also, I mean, he's been through a lot this year, right? The passing of his father. There's been a lot of things that are going on with this program. Yeah, I did miss the memo, apparently. It's tough. It's been a tough year, and he did great with what was dealt to him, the hand that was dealt to him, especially in the pitching staff. Losing a couple guys early on. I know we spoke about this early this week, but losing a couple big time arms early on, and then of course Ligon kind of struggling throughout the year with his arm issues. And you never really settled into having that that number one guy, that Friday night starter. Really, Gainesville, did what he could, but it's tough, man. It's tough because I see one side of it, Max. I see the side that Vish is talking about, right? Like bringing, kind of improving this team ever since he's been there. The national seed last year, the 9th seed this year, but then I also see the other side, right? Like this is You got to get past regionals, man. You're hosting regionals. You got to get past it. You're not getting past it. What is causing that? Is it the coach? Is it the players? It's tough, right? So when you hear people say, "Well, I'm glad that he's gone. I'm glad that now we can, get a coach that's going to put us over the hump." I don't know, and Max, you know a little bit about this, man. I don't know how hard people realize it is, how difficult it is to to get a head coach in baseball, in college baseball, and immediately come. How do you make this team better, right? Like this is, I mean, you're already up there. You're hosting regionals. You're a top 10 uh, program in the country. It's going to be tough for whoever else comes in and tries to pick up where he left off, right?
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely going to be tough to pick off where he left off, but I think there may be some good candidates. I haven't done a ton of research as it's like I just got off work recently, so I haven't had a ton of time to really dig into it. But there are some candidates out there, some names I've heard floating around that I think could potentially take us over that hump. Um, but again, I think, and I was talking to Vish before the show, I think now was the perfect time to do it because when you think about the roster, you're retooling pretty much the whole roster. Third base is gone, shortstop's gone, first base is gone. You might lose right field. You're losing your fourth outfielder in Dario Gomez. You're losing a couple of your pitchers. You're losing some other backups. Like the whole roster is basically going to be new. You know, we have three catchers who none of them really stood out this year, other than Perez's power. But it kind of just went away the whole. I mean, he couldn't hit the whole last half of the season. Um, it's going to be a whole new roster next year. So we'll just rip the band-aid off, get it over with. Um, Next year might not have been the best way to see what Gino can do because the whole roster is going to be new. So maybe you just get rid of him now, and assuming that he got forced out. Um,
But
and
I also see it this way. Like you bring up a great point, right? Like he may have seen the writing on the wall with this team as well. He said, "Hey, I may have to completely retool
sure,
this whole entire team. I'm not up for that right now." And then if I put up an FSU type of year with a brand new team, whether it's via the transfer portal or recruiting, which by the way, remember, it's only 11.7 scholarships in baseball, not the full 25 or 30 guys are on full scholarships, right? So it's harder in baseball to recruit really, really good talent as well.
hmm
So now you put all that together and you say, "Hey, I don't want to, I've done what I can. I've had my fun here, 24 years, national championships, everything. I think it's time for me to go and have a guy bring in his own players, his own coaches, and kind of retool that way. And he may get a longer leash. He will, right? Because if Gino does that next year, then it looks ugly. He might get canned, and it might look ugly. They may have kind of like Vish said, it might have been right in the middle.
hmm
Yeah, the other thing is there's no guarantee with a new coach that it gets. There's no guarantee with him it gets better. And I mean, baseball is not meant to be played over a 1 and 2 game sample size. And you can do all the improvements you want to the program. It's like making that one pitch, that one game that determines everything. I mean, great example of that is Duke is still playing. And Miami proved over the last couple of weeks they're a much better team than Duke, and they beat them consistently. And then Duke got a better draw. Didn't run into any power conference teams like Miami did with Texas there, who won the Big 12 and was a 2 seed. And then that's the way baseball works sometimes. So
hmm
from his perspective, I think also he's probably a little bit out of answers in terms of what do I do to fix this. We can analyze some of the mistakes he made, but ultimately it was Texas had 2 pitchers better than anyone on Miami staff other than Walters, and that was the end of it. They got to 2-0 based off of that. So I think it's tough. It's tough to win, and it's tough to get so dominant that you can just like walk through regionals. You just can't. You're not going to be that good, and so I don't know. I think he's probably just out of ideas as well. Just like, what do I do differently? And like Max said, there's a big rebuild coming this year, losing a lot of players. So if he was thinking about stepping away, this might be the time.
Ao, and by the way, shout out to everybody in the chat. Ao brings up a good question, and I think
No, it never brings up anything good.
Look, keep your Miami Flow in-house
Yo, I
fighting
tried.
on that network.
Hey, I tried, bro. Shout out to the average Kings fan. I tried, bro. I tried.
No, they got a new show name now.
Oh yeah, what is it now?
Miami Mayhem.
Is that what it's called now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Miami Mayhem Show. Look at that. Okay, shout out. I like that. That's a cool. That's a cool name. That's a cool name. This is a good question, right? Have they ever talked about restructuring the baseball scholarship system? I know that they've spoken about it. I know that it's weird. 11.7 scholarships. Do any of you have any insight as to why it's not full 25? Is it a budget thing? Is it a money? Oh, obviously, at the end of the day, it's always about money. But is it a money thing? Can any of you kind of shed some light to that?
Because the NCAA knows exactly what they're doing. That's
Right.
my answer.
I mean,
So just to be clear in terms of how underinvested in college baseball is, just I think this year or the year before, they finally allowed the third assistant coach to actually be a paid coach.
Yeah.
So like if you're watching the College World Series 3 years ago, the guy coaching first base or the guy coaching third, the not head coach, was a volunteer assistant.
Yeah.
Because the NCAA would not let them pay a third assistant coach. So this is that level of sports and why they're so restrictive. Yeah, it's it's the way the NCAA operates. Keep all the money as much as they can in their own hands, and who they're negotiating with the schools who also it's in their best interest to not give out. Like the players don't have any advocacy, so who's going to advocate for them to increase the scholarships?
and the truth is, right, as far as NIL is concerned, it's not a huge player in baseball like it is in football and even basketball. I think it's again it plays third fiddle here, and that's
well the ability of one player to impact baseball. I mean, look at the Angels.
right. And the Angels have two.
Yeah, it still is like one player in baseball is not. You need to build the whole team out to do it. To come up once every few
The Angels have possibly the two best players in baseball, and they are still not very good. It's unbelievable.
That's baseball.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I didn't see this. Did you see this?
Looks like Renzo's in the portal. Yeah, I mean, we spoke about that a couple of days ago, and it's not a surprise, right? We kind of mentioned him as a possibility to be in the portal. So, but let's all right, let's bring it back around because we were talking about potential candidates moving forward. Now, before I get into this list, because I have a really good list here of 50 names. It's 50. I'm not going to go over 50 names. The 50 names to watch on the 2023 college coaching market. So there's actually some really good names there. Let's kind of go over the obvious ones right off the bat that a lot of people are probably going to talk about. I'm gonna start off number one with a guy that's already on the staff, right? JD Arteaga. I know a lot of people want him gone as well. He may decide to move on, but he's one of the obvious ones. He's been with the program 21 years now as a pitching coach. Obviously, he's quite possibly the best pitcher ever to play at Miami. How do you guys feel about maybe keeping a guy like Arteaga? He's not going to stay on staff as a pitching coach. If they're going to do anything with him, and again, we're talking about budgets and money here, promoting Arteaga as to the head coach and then bringing in other guys, is that a potential? Do you think you can see something like that happen? We'll start with you, Vish. We'll go around this way.
No, I don't see that happening. I think the only way that happens is if it was really just they love Gino, they want him to stay, and he's like we mentioned, Paul DiMare passed this year, and he just wants to. He literally just I want to spend more time with my family. I'm not doing this anymore. That's the only way I could see JD getting the job. If there was any kind of talk of we need to improve this or that, or this needs to get better, you don't just hand it to the assistant coach. And then I don't think JD's sticking around. I don't think it's going to be his choice, to be honest. The new coach will come in and want to bring in his people. So I would expect him to go too. He's actually been here longer than Gino, and it would be kind of odd for him to just continue to stick around at this point. So I don't see any way JD is here next year.
You feel the same way, Max?
Yeah, I just don't see it. I think pitching's been a problem, and it wouldn't make sense to make that move. That's a Blake James move, if you ask me.
I feel you on that. All right, so moving ahead, just off the top of my head, some guys that maybe are that are past legacy guys that have been in the program, played or coached. The first two guys that come to mind for me are the one obvious one is John Jay, who's I believe he's a hitting coach or he's just a bench coach over with the Miami Marlins. And then you've got Paco Figueroa, who's also I believe he's the first base coach with the Philadelphia Phillies, or he's in the organization as well. Those two guys are the guys that with major league experience that have that are still coaching that have played at before that I kind of can think of right off the bat. Do any of those two names kind of strike you as a possibility to come and join this program? The head coach is strong. It's tough for me because they're still really young. However, you've got some really young head coaches right now in college baseball, 34, 35, 36-year-old guys. Can you see something like that, Max, with a guy like John Jay or Paco?
I could see it. I think John Jay's been around the program a lot the last couple of years and has exactly what Smash Bro just said, a ton of ties to South Florida. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was named the next head coach here at Miami. I don't know as much about Paco personally, but it wouldn't shock me.
I actually played on Little League Baseball on the same team with Paco and Danny, with both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, grew up playing baseball with them, of course. So those two are intriguing names to me because they both had obviously really good careers here at John Jay, obviously one of the best hitters in history as well. Vish, how do you feel about bringing in a guy like Jay or even Figueroa?
Yeah, I mean, as long as he doesn't talk about that damn banyan tree. John Jay and I have under the radar beef.
His fault. They kept asking questions.
Oh my god, that nightmare! I can't get out of that nightmare. Like the season's collapsing. He's talking about his banyan tree. Anyway, yeah, I mean, he's very new to coaching, and it's a big risk to take someone that's essentially been with. I mean, he's been a coach of the month for a few months, and hand him the keys to this program. That'd be my only concern. Obviously, knows baseball inside out. That's not like a concern. He's played, succeeded at the highest levels, World Series champions. So, and he's been on teams that went to Omaha from here, so he knows what it takes at the college level. My only concern there would be that he's doesn't really have a lot of coaching experience. But for him, if it's someone like John Jay, the assistant coaches, those are going to matter a lot to do the day-to-day kind of teaching stuff. Because again, it's going to be tough for a first-time head coach to have to do a lot of that. And we talked about this earlier. You don't get a lot of opportunities to. You can get a big staff in baseball. You get 2 assistants. That's it. So it is a tough job to be a college baseball manager. You don't have a big staff to work with. You got to do a lot of the work yourself. So that'd be my only concern with him. I don't like Max. I don't really know much about Paco other than he's coaching at the Phillies.
First of all, Tap, I can coach, and I've coached. All right, summer ball, travel ball. I've coached some really good players down here. Don't tell me that I can't coach. All right, speak for yourself. Not about me, Gary. I love you, brother. Thanks for putting me out there as a candidate. And I'm listening to all offers. Dan Radakovich, holler at me, man. I got you, bro.
I'll send him your number.
Yeah. Let Dan know I can coach, man. I love coaching, so I'll surround myself with great recruiters and coaches. Max will be my strength and conditioning coordinator. Vish will be my.
Gotta grow the mustache out again, I guess.
If you're gonna fit in on campus with that job, you got to, yeah.
Oh yeah, right. No kidding. So let's talk about a couple other guys, right? Yeah, obviously we've gone through some of those. Some of those guys. You know what? Another one that I'm not a huge fan of bringing in just because of the recent stuff that's gone on with him. But Greg Lovelady obviously is another, well-known candidate, former Miami player, obviously national champion. Went over to Wright State, had a really good career as a coach in Wright State. Got a big-time job at UCF. Didn't go so well at UCF. Was just recently let go this past season. Is that a name that you'd be intrigued in seeing down here in Miami coming back? I mean, I know he's beloved down here, right? We all love Greg Lovelady. Is he a guy that can come down here and maybe help this program win? I mean, sometimes, past coaching jobs didn't work out for one reason or another. look at Mervil Melendez, right, who had some really good, coaching jobs over at what was it, Alabama State and some of these schools, and he just didn't work out at FIU. Is that kind of like the route that you would take if you bring in a guy like Greg Lovelady? Would you guys be opposed to that, or do you like that option?
I mean, like Melissa said, it's a solid name, but
It is. It's beautiful.
it is a solid name. Good choice of high
Does
school.
he still have the chops?
I don't know if he still
That'd
has
be
the
pretty
chops,
freaking cool, right?
but good. He went to a good high school. Went to a good college, but one postseason. What was it? 7 years at UCF. That's not a good record. I think he hit the ground running there and really elevated their program initially, and it looked to stagnate over the last few years. Now again, it's a different job there. Making the tournament out of a smaller conference is really hard. But UCF has underperformed for a while, and he was fired. And whether it's bad optics or whatever, I can't imagine Miami hiring a coach that was just fired by UCF. I don't see that happening.
No. All right, so Max, I'll save this one for you. We'll go to the next potential candidate before I go down this list. Another one that's been spoken about recently a lot, right? Speaking of UCF, is Joe Girardi, who everybody knows Joe Girardi, right? Former Yankee coach, Marlins coach, yada yada yada. His son actually plays at FIU now, but he was rumored to be potentially taking the job over at UCF. Now it may not be that way, right? He may be looking elsewhere. Is he a name that we should really be, keeping a close eye on with Miami? Obviously, he does have some ties down here. His son plays at FIU. It's a big name, right? It's a guy that coached for the New York Yankees. Come on now. I hate to say that. I know Max.
Take that, Red Sox fan.
Yeah, it hurts me to say that a lot, but Joe Girardi's another name, right? Again, he hasn't really coached in the college ranks, though. He's more of a professional coach. The transition from that to college now, recruiting, he's been known to be a little bit of a hard ass. How does that work out? Would you guys like to see a guy like Joe Girardi? I'll go to Max on this one.
Well, I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm going to say yes, obviously. I mean, he's got 4 World Series wins. Yeah, he can be a little bit of a hard ass, but maybe that's what we need. I just think he has so much success as a head coach that he knows what it takes to get over the hump. He's done it before. And, there is a question mark with recruiting, but all he has to say is, I won 4 World Series with the Yankees. Come play for me. And at the same time, even with that, like a completely separate thing is he makes sure one of those assistants has had experience recruiting, right. and that kind of solves that problem for you. I mean, a lot of the times the head coach isn't the main recruiter, right? So I would be a huge fan of that hiring. I would probably run around my house, run outside, and do jumping jacks and be happy if that were the case.
I'm sure A Black would feel the same way.
Oh, yeah. We already talked about it.
I bet. Vish, what are your thoughts on Joe Girardi?
Yeah, I mean, everything Max says spot on. Also, we're probably going to talk about this a little bit, but, retaining players on this roster is going to be a challenge now. And look, the ultimate goal is to get to the next level and play there. Having a manager with connections all over the major league system is a huge selling point, not just for recruits, but players on the roster. As Max said, he's done this at the professional level. It is a little bit different in college, but he's kind of managed through every kind of situation. It's not different in the sense that in the majors you have a long season and then the postseason just comes at you fast, and you got to kind of shift the way you play to get through series, and that's something he's done successfully. He was offered the UCF job, which he turned down, which might be a hint of things to come. But because if you're getting offered the Miami job or even think that's a possibility, you're not going to take the UCF job. So there might be a little bit of a hint there, as was mentioned earlier. He's living in the area now. His kid plays at FIU, so it's an easy transition for him.
Right. Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think that it would be a home run hire if you ask me, because of that, right? What Max mentioned, the 4 World Series, you know, the ability to be able to develop. I mean, he's gonna develop talent, right? I mean, that's what head coaches do. You know, managers in pro baseball, they don't just manage the lineups, man. These guys are still, you know, in the day to day grind, and they are developing a lot of these players. So I think that he would surround himself with some of the best coaching talent there is. And that's another thing, right? He'd probably bring in some really good coaching talent, whether it's former pitching coaches in Major League Baseball, whether it's, you know, first base, third base coaches that he's had some, you know, some experience with. So I would like that hire. I wouldn't be opposed to it. He just needs to bring in a strong recruiter as well to help him with that, because at the end of the day, yes, he just has to say, hey, I've won 4 World Series rings. But at the same time, you got to bring someone in that has ties to other areas as well, because what he's strong here in Florida, he's strong nationwide. And we'll probably talk about that later on about, you know, recruiting and, you know, how, you know, I feel like they need to get back to their roots of recruiting the best players in South Florida, but still getting the studs outside of the state as well. So, another guy I want to kind of talk about a little bit is, this is probably going to be a hot name after after the NCAA tournament. So I want to kind of get it out there now to see if they can steal him if they don't go after a guy like Girardi. But Max, Corey Muscara, the pitching coach over at Wake Forest. I don't know. I don't need to say much, right? But he's got potentially the 4 best pitchers in college baseball. And they can go at any time. They can be aces on any team in the country. He's got 4 of them over there at Wake Forest. He's developed talent at Wake Forest. You know, obviously Coach Walter and him have done an amazing job building that program up and getting it to where it is right now, number 1 in the country, number 1 seed nationally, yada yada yada. Corey Muscara is a guy that I would really, really look at really hard, just as hard as potentially a guy like Girardi or some of these other names that we're going to go after. How do you feel about bringing in a guy like Corey Muscara, what he can do for this program? And look, pitching has always been something that, I mean, look at the national championship days with Santos and Roque and Gill and Mike New. And I mean, throw in whoever you want to throw in, you know, a name. And pitching was big. Pitching always came up big for us. You know, in every single situation where we were out there, you know, battling for a World Series. So Corey Muscara is a big time name. Is that someone you can see here in Miami?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he has any ties. That's one of the guys that I was going to start doing some research on because of how good Wake's pitching staff is. I'd also like to see kind of how long he's been doing it because, you know, it's all good and dandy that he's doing it this year, but has he done it in the past? I know he had coached at Maryland for a while, and Maryland's been a decent program. So a guy that I would definitely want to do some more research on, but I wouldn't be super opposed to it. You know, the guy that I really liked was LSU's pitching coach, but he just got hired by Georgia this past week. So we'll see what happens. But I do kind of agree with Smash Bro. I think it's going to be a quick hire. I don't think it's going to take too long.
Yeah, I think you know, I kind of feel like they've already had an idea. Again, this may not be as surprising to the administration and everybody around the program as it is to us. So I feel like they've kind of gotten a head start with this, and that's why I think you heard Dan Radakovich kind of say the search will begin immediately. It's because it's probably already been something that has been spoken about. Vish, how do you feel about Corey Muscara?
Yeah, similar to what Max said. I mean, Wake Forest pitching is ridiculous. It's hard to know whether that's, you know, the quality, like, is that the recruiting or the actual pitching coach? And I think a big thing is you got to have South Florida ties here to recruit locally and bring the talent in. So I don't know. I don't believe he has any ties to South Florida. So again, it'll be if you're going to go, and I'm not opposed to doing this, going kind of outside of the South Florida community to bring in the head coach, there better be some assistance with ties to the area. Otherwise you're going to be lost pretty quickly here. This is very much a fraternity culture with South Florida baseball. Which if you ever go to a Canes baseball game or Jazz, you'll see really quickly. He knows half the people in the crowd from Little League and stuff. So you need people that can tap into that. So it's fine.
This will be like, where did Jazz go? Oh, yeah, he's over there talking to
Well, to Brian Asbury apparently, but
Brian Asbury, I did that for a while. That was awesome, man.
but yeah, but I mean that's really important to have that, that insider that can break through there. So if you're gonna go with someone like Mascara as the head coach, you better have assistants that can go do that work, which is Max's some of the assistants do most of the recruiting anyways. It's probably not a big deal. And also, I mean, this is a program that's successful now that it has been for a few years, and so I that's one of the ways to get better is to poach assistants off of successful programs.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely an appealing option.
I'm old, Smash. 2001, man. Graduated high school 2001. And Gary, I mean, I keep telling Vish, I've got all the South Florida ties you need, brother. That's it. What
Flo. That's all the ties you need right there.
I mean, how much easier can my job get, right? Oh man. Oh, cool, man. Cool. Yeah. Let me know. Let me know where you play ball at. All right, so let's kind of go down a list of some of the other names that are still out there, whether they're head coaches, position coaches, yada yada yada. The first one that keeps popping up is also Dan McDonald, who is the head coach at Louisville. Obviously, he's had some success recently. He's built up a pretty good program there in Louisville. A guy that's been rumored now for a few years to go to a couple of different places, like Alabama and some of these other big names. That's one of the names. I'm gonna throw out a couple names, and then you guys can kind of, talk a little bit about. I wouldn't mention Brian O'Connor. He's the head coach at Virginia. He's got a hell of a program there. He won a national title. That's not someone that I think is going to go anywhere right now, considering what he's doing at Virginia. An interesting name is Cliff Godwin, who's the head coach at East Carolina. He is a former player there. That's his alma mater. He's been there a few years, about 3 years now as the head coach, if I'm not mistaken. So, Rudd is my boy. I play semi-pro ball with Rudd too. Michael Rudman is my homie. Obviously a former Miami Hurricane pitcher as well. So very cool, man. Yeah, I know Rudd real well. Smash, send me a Twitter DM with your name and all that stuff. Obviously, we don't want to get too public here with all that stuff. But yeah, Cliff Godwin is another big name. We mentioned Tom Walter. He's probably not going to go anywhere right now, building that juggernaut over there in Wake Forest. But how about some of those names? We'll kind of go down the list a little bit again. But McDonald, Godwin. How do you guys feel about some of those names? East Carolina obviously, made the regional this year as well. They played really well in the regional. I know they got bumped out at the end, but and then of course you've got like I mentioned McDonald, who's building a really good program in Louisville. How do you guys feel about going outside the box and getting some of those guys?
I just wanted to make a statement. Florida State just lost in the College World Series for softball.
They lost to Oklahoma?
Yeah, just saying.
Oklahoma's they're the reigning champs, right? Aren't they?
Back to back now.
Yeah. They're nasty, man.
Lost one game this year.
Wow. Yeah, 59 and now 60 and 1.
So they won it all already. That was
I think that
was the clincher.
Yeah.
Good.
Anyways, about these names. Sorry, I just love when Florida State loses.
Yeah, so. I feel you.
I really like the Louisville coach. I think he's good. I don't see the Wake Forest coach or the Virginia coach coming. I agree with you on that. I really, really like the East Carolina coach. I think he'd be solid here. He's done well over there for a couple of years now. So I mean, I'm open to it again. It's so fresh that I haven't done a ton of research yet. But I'm just excited to get this thing underway.
Here's some other names for you, Vish. Mark Wasikowski, who's the head coach of Oregon. Of course, they made it to the regionals this year as well. I think they were the 2 seed in the Auburn regional, if I'm not mistaken. But they played really well. Another name that we know that he's building a really good program over there is Chris Pollard over at Duke, right? He's obviously got something nice going on over there. As good as Duke is right now, this would be a huge step up for him and a possibility to be at a really, really big time, blue blood program like I think that's another good one. Max, you mentioned Maryland. I think Rob Vaughn is the head coach at Maryland. Another guy, Campbell, is another great program that is playing some really good baseball. Justin Hare there. What about some of those names, Vish?
Yeah, the last time he went outside of Miami and hired someone was Jim Morris and pulled him from Georgia Tech. So it's not that we won't go
Yeah, it's how
pull
we
a
won't
coach.
do it exactly.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I don't know much about Oregon. Although this is definitely true.
It would be, yeah. It's all
But
kind of fresh.
but
So
I
we
will say that in the Pac-12, that once the two Los Angeles schools leave, that baseball strength is going to drop again, and it's not going to be as attractive a conference for coaches to be in. So there's an opportunity potentially there to get coaches out of there. And same thing goes with, Maryland has plenty of money. It's in the Big Ten, but the Big Ten for baseball is not really anything. So again, there's opportunities to pull their
so
coach as
Miami and
well.
FSU join it, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that is neither here nor there. I think there's some opportunities there and even within conference, you mentioned Duke. They're obviously still playing, but that's just baseball stuff, right? With the Clemson and Miami are out, and Duke is still playing, right? That's how baseball works sometimes. But yeah, no, I think that's definitely an option because I think we'll give more money and more facilities and more opportunity to win at a high level here than you'd ever get at Duke.
Here's the dark. There's two dark horse names that I'm going to mention that I'm familiar with. You guys may be familiar with them as well. And believe it or not, one of them really has. No, he's not going to steal the Clemson coach. This is his first year there. He just
Yeah. I was about to.
Bakich. You're talking about Bakich, yeah. He's not.
And also that wasn't even a Radakovich hire, so
yeah,
right, because the new guy would have hired him. I think.
True. Here are two names that I really like that are under the radar guys, are not obviously at big schools. They're at mid-major, smaller schools. But first one is Jose Vasquez, who is the head coach at Alabama State now. This guy has, he's been the SWAC coach of the year back-to-back years, which might not say something, but you know how I feel about baseball and how much talent there is outside of Power 5 schools and even mid-majors and smaller schools. To do those kind of things at a school like Alabama State, that's a big accomplishment. I like a guy like Jose Vasquez. He's been at places like Bethune-Cookman, who have had really solid programs for a mid-major team. And then the other coach for me is Omar Johnson. A lot of people don't know about him. And he's, and the coach that was known at this school was Deion Sanders, right? So he's the head coach at Jackson State. He's been there 17 years. He's got ties to South Florida because he always brings talent. I actually almost played at Jackson State. That's a little known fact there. After my Tommy John, I wanted to play baseball. I almost went to Jackson State. But 17 years in that program, has won multiple. What's a conference called? Jesus, the South. I think it's the Southland Conference. But we're talking about, he's led Jackson State to NCAA tournaments. 17 years in one program. He does have ties to South Florida because he does recruit down here, and he recruits down here pretty heavy. Based off of what I know, my knowledge of having some kids that were interested in his program when I was coaching high school ball as well. So I know that he recruits the area, so he knows the coaches down here. He knows the program. Would you guys be opposed to having a guy like a Vasquez or an Omar Johnson who are coaching at mid-major programs, but have a lot of coaching experience, or a guy like Johnson who has South Florida ties? How open are you guys to having a guy like that come in here that have been doing it for quite a while? Max, what are you on that first?
Yeah, baseball is one of those rare sports where you have insane coaching talent and an insane playing talent at the lowest levels. Like even at the JUCO level, some JUCO schools have probably more talent than some Power 5 schools. It's just crazy that way because you can leave after 1 year instead of having to wait 3 years. So to me, it doesn't really matter where the coach comes from. We're talking about a potential John Jay hire has half a year of MLB coaching experience. So to me, where they come from doesn't really matter. It's just can they get the job done? And at the end of the day, I don't know enough about all of these coaches yet to know if they can, and I probably never will because I'm not an athletic director. So my opinion doesn't really matter too much. But I wouldn't be scared away because they're at a smaller school. But there is one coach I did want to mention. Again, shout out to my guy Jim. Scott Brown, who's the current pitching coach at Vanderbilt, I think would be another guy that Comes from a pitching background, has been at a powerhouse school, and has done really, really well.
That would
That's a
be
name.
huge. That'd be a
That's the
big
name. Yeah, it's a name that he had mentioned to me earlier today. I think that'd be huge as well.
Here's a name that I think a lot of people would like, and I think Smash Bro just mentioned Miami-Dade College, but Adrian Morales. I mean, how big would that be, right? National champion, played at South Carolina, was a third baseman for South Carolina when they won it all, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and now he's the head coach. He's obviously a local kid, South Florida ties. He's the head coach at Miami-Dade College. If there's anything that we know down here, South Florida, Miami-Dade College always has a hell of a baseball program. And for a kid like that to come in and maybe go up to the Power Five conference, a D1 school, and coach and bring some of those players that he would normally get at Miami-Dade, who are, as a matter of fact, Vish, you and I mentioned the Korean kid that plays for Miami-Dade is committed to go play in Miami. They always pump out really, really good players that get drafted year in and year out, and that's to me is kind of a dark horse as well, and altogether because he's local, he's a former national champion at a Power Five school at an SEC program, and he's got the ties that you need, and he's coached at a really good school in Miami-Dade College. That's another option for me. I mean, that's the guy that if I guess not if all else fails, but I think he should be up there as one of the candidates, definitely who should get a shot, uh, albeit if he wants it, of course, right? I mean, that wouldn't be a bad pick. So I like Adrian Morales as well as kind of like that dark horse candidate on top of.
Well, I think he's definitely gettable. Like if you get him,
Oh yeah,
he's you're gonna get him.
right.
So that's at least an easier sell there. I
Yeah.
guess Melissa has a question. I don't have a good answer to, but I'm curious if either of you do.
Is it preferable to get a coach that is a former pitcher? No, not necessarily. Look, Girardi was a former catcher, right? So I actually I like coaches that were catchers.
Catchers or pitchers, like
Yeah.
those are the two positions that I like the most.
Or even
yeah.
shortstops too. I like that too. And I'm not saying that because of Alex Cora or anything like that, but
Yeah, why don't you just let him?
let's bring Alex Cora. That's
Yeah, while we're talking about loves coming back to coach.
Yeah, why don't you
There
just
you go.
let us Alex Cora, Jazz?
Yeah, right.
Just
What
get
the
Alex
hell?
Cora.
Why not?
He's got unfinished business from that. The most famous picture of him in college is not a good one. So
No, it's not. I don't want to talk about that.
So maybe he comes back here and finishes the job.
But yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, former pitchers definitely are some of the the better. I guess you can say the better coaches. But you see a lot of former shortstops and catchers as well, just because of the nature of their position, right, and what they do. Yeah, you typically see those guys coaching a lot, but you see a lot of different.
Well, they have to do a lot more of the strategy stuff. They have to call the pitches, and
Absolutely.
that's the catcher and the pitcher working together on it. So
Absolutely. So I totally get that.
That is, yeah. But I wonder if that changes now that they radio in the thing to the wristband.
Which, by the way, I don't like. I hate the whole.
Everyone's just standing around like reading the play off their wrists. So
it drives me crazy, man.
Yeah, that might age that advantage of getting a pitcher or a catcher. That's kind of at the call of game. Might age out of the system in about 10 years, but right now it's still in there.
I hate it though. I hate them going to their wristband and looking at the pitch.
It's technology, man. Embrace it.
It's ridiculous. Baseball is kind of behind the 8 ball and all that stuff all the time, anyways. So, yeah. So was I, Poke. So that's why I'm a hell of a coach. But anyways, I digress.
I mean, you're politicking for the job. You got to give you that.
At this point, if I don't at least get a phone call or a DM or something from someone on, in administration, I'm going to be disappointed. All right. No, but in all honesty, I think, look, this is the next thing, and we'll kind of finish with this here. What it's going to do to the recruiting class now, the future, and the guys that are on the team now. And this is how I'll pose this question, Vish. If you are a current player on this team right now, and you see that your head coach has resigned, and now they're going to bring in a new guy, how do you feel? Are you a guy I mean, look, the transfer portal, right? It's something that we can't get away from. do you take a shot there? Or do you say, well, let's wait and see who it is that comes in and how I'm going to be utilized on this team before I decide to, enter the portal? Or is it just like, I'm going to get the hell out of here because I know we got to do so much work here?
I think it's a wait and see. Well, I think one of the things you got to understand is you mentioned 11.7 scholarships. There's not a lot of opportunity in baseball. It's not like other sports, and there's a huge difference in baseball versus like basketball and being in a mid-major versus a major. You're playing a lot of sloggy games in the middle of nowhere if you're not in a major conference, playing in like really crappy stadiums. And you're at Miami right now. So I think it's definitely a wait and see, unless, if you're one of the, I'm not going to name names, but obviously I think we know who our best returning player is, and players of that caliber have options. So they don't really have to worry about like starting somewhere. But if you think you're going to start here or have an opportunity, you got to at least wait and see who the new manager is. Because, you go into the portal, even if a big school picks you up, you might not play a lot there. And if one doesn't, you might end up at a school that you don't really want to be playing at. Right. So baseball is so limited in opportunities. You see kids, even before the transfer portal, just like, play for a year because of the scholarship limits. They don't get them renewed. It's a brutal sport. And so, yeah, you got to take the bird in hand.
How do you feel, Max?
I agree with Vish. I think you wait and figure out who like the next coach is. I mean, imagine being a player, right? You hop in the portal, and then you find out Joe Girardi is going to be the head coach, and you've already left. Like, who wouldn't want to play for a guy that's won 4 World Series at the highest level? So to me, I think you wait and you give that new person a chance and go from there.
Okay, final question so we can get out of here. I got to pack. Whatever.
Should have thought of that before you showed up late.
Yeah, well, I was doing other stuff. How about that? And
I crawled out of my sick bed to do this.
I do work. All right? I do work.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. This is how I can pack. All right, final question before we get out of here. If you had to pick one coach, I know it's early. If you had to pick one coach to coach the University of Miami, everybody has to give me a different answer. Max, I'll go with you first because I know who you're going to mention.
Joe Girardi.
All right, Vish, how about you?
Well, I mean, he took mine. I have to really go with a different answer.
Yes, you do.
Jazz Santana.
No, you stop it.
Hey, man, we've got nominations here.
Don't blow smoke up my ass or Gary's. I want a legitimate guy. Come on. Give me something.
So realistically, I would look at someone like East Carolina's coach. I think that's a move we can make. That high level maintenance of a program that probably with a little bit more talent could take it to the next level.
Fair enough. I like that. And I'm gonna go with I'll go Corey Muscara then.
Thought you were gonna go Jazz Santana. He can't even get you to nominate yourself.
No, man, because listen, I gotta give someone else a shot because I know if I go in there, it's back-to-back natties all day. Natty Ices, that's what I meant. Natty Ices.
You're already lowering standards, man. We can't. This is why you're not getting the job.
I'm just kidding, by the way. Natty National Championships. That's what I meant. Josh White.
Oh boy, you are gonna get a DM from some department now. It's not gonna be the way you want it to,
though. Max, Vish, thank you guys for coming on.
I guess last time we signed off with we'll see you after fall ball. Maybe do a little recap of that. I guess this case we'll see when they hire a coach.
Yeah, we'll see you guys when we get a new coach. Poke, hit me up, man. DM me. I got to talk to you about something too. But yeah, we'll see you guys soon. And thanks for watching.
The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rings Kane Show. You know.